Thanks for joining us tonight for Live in the Mob. We will be with you momentarily, but we're making some final preparations. And who knows, maybe we're getting the guest finally all settled in? Be patient, give us a little bit of time. We'll be with you shortly. Thank you for joining Live in the Mob. We are almost ready. Hang on tight. Actually, this is the beginning of a 10-minute intro just to get people on and watching. Maybe you can go wash some dishes or do something. In all honesty, this is just so we can build the audience at this first part. Anyways, please hang tight. We will be back. We will be here. Thank you for joining Live in the Mob and watching.
Watch, you know. So, and I'm sure, like I said, now let me ask you because I didn't want to bring it up live on there. There used to be the FiTech forum.
Thanks for joining us tonight for Live in the Mob. We will be with you momentarily, but we're making some final preparations. And who knows, maybe we're getting the guest finally all settled in? Be patient, give us a little bit of time. We'll be with you shortly. Thank you for joining Live in the Mob.
Thanks for tuning in to Try 5 Talk with your host, Daniel, Craig, and Joe, as they spend the next hour talking with special guests and talking tech and tips. All right, we are back here live on the Try 5 Talk. We have Mike Vitek here, and we have Greg, my co-host here. And you know what? Kind of excited here. Let's Mike, give us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what exactly you do.
Yeah, my name is Michael Wall. First off, I'm the VP of Marketing and Sales for Phytech Fuel Injection. I'm located in the Riverside location, and I handle anything from day-to-day operations to new development to troubleshooting to all the sales and marketing decisions.
Okay, so marketing decisions and all that kind of stuff. So that's more or less you're handling the day to day, how things get advertised out, and what everything looks like when it goes out to different vendors and whatnot.
Yeah, correct. We do it that way. I'm in charge of all the commercials, any ad placement, any magazine articles you see. I have a very good team that works for me that handles all the website changes, any kind of imaging, corrections. I mean, to catalog building to just everything that runs a company.
Mike, because we're talking about media, obviously this is a type of media, but this is just supposed to be fun. But do you find for your sales, is it what's driving it the most? Basically we know internet's huge. Is it the social media aspect, or is it some of the TV shows? What do you find is the biggest driver?
I'll kind of lay it
Craig,
down.
you're frozen there, Craig.
Uh-oh.
You're back now.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice it. But I'll break it down the way I see it. Person-to-person sales, going to shows and stuff is still number one. Being personal to people is still number one in getting out there in front of people, but you can't get to millions and millions of people at once by doing that. So social media comes strongly into play. That would be probably a good fight right now currently for second place. But magazines are still a thing. People still love picking up a piece of paper and actually filling in their hands and going to some ad places, mostly with people like Modern Rotting and some of the newer magazines that are coming out that seem to do a little bit better job of covering the classic car scene and our products. They're doing really well with stuff like that, and the tech install magazines and stuff like that. That would probably be our moneymaker, is still the magazines, but TV shows and social media would probably be a strong second.
Okay. I know when I heard of Phytech, now this goes back to 2017.
Okay.
I think you and I talked briefly on the phone. A good friend of mine got an old C10 for his son. They've been putting it together, and he went with Phytech. And of course, I'm in the gym working out with him, and he tells me about Phytech, and I thought he was speaking some Japanese carburetor. I said, I said, what are you talking about Phytech? Because he was talking about Phytech. And that was the first time that, because up until about 2016, I was carpenter, dad, full-time dad, husband, and I put my hot rodding stuff kind of behind me for a while until I got a chance to work on my car. So by the time I got back into it, I didn't know, and Dan and I have had a lot of conversations. When people talk about boost, I didn't know what boost was. I'd never heard that term because I wasn't into it that much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you started talking about boost. Now you got fuel injection, and when I learned that, I knew what fuel injection was, but when you start talking about an aftermarket throttle body that could be used like this, that's when I started hearing about my friend, and I was like, oh my God, I got to look into that. And then I found another high school friend of mine with a 66 Mustang 289. Of course, being a car guy, we always have to tell you what motor they have, right?
Yeah.
And he went to Phytech. And so I talked to him. He goes, yep, he did all his own tuning, running good. All right, let's do this. And that's how I learned about it. And so, and then once again, social media. In 2017, even though it doesn't seem like that long ago, it's 6 years is a long time to grow through social media and doing stuff. And so how long have you, I'm going to jump back to how long have you been working in the car industry, and when did you start with Phytech?
Me personally, in the car industry, I started in high school. Actually, I started with the auto shop class, and I just fell in love with it. I had a knack for it. As a kid, I was always good with my hands taking things apart, but that's when I realized that you can actually make a career out of it, make some money. So right out of high school, I was hired into Pep Boys when Pep Boys actually worked on cars and wasn't so commercialized as far as doing like the ATV stuff. And they actually had real service centers and real mechanics in there. There's few still out there, but I grew with that company into where I used to rebuild the Pep Boys. I used to get transferred to different service centers, and I just had to hire a whole new staff, build them up, get them profitable, and move on to the next one.
Sure.
That got exhausting, because one, you make connections with people, you like people, and then all of a sudden it's ripped out from underneath you, and you're in a whole new area and having to fire people and then start all over. It gets exhausting, and I got tired of it. So I hunkered down at a shop out in Temecula for a very long time, and it was Thompson's Thompson's Tire and Repair, and I worked there as a mechanic for years, until he eventually sold the business and just got out of the game. Period. I went and worked on CNCs. Somebody said, "Hey, you probably can figure out CNCs pretty quick." So I went and started doing some spring coiling, manufacturing, engineering on springs, until I saw a hiring ad for Phytech. And I saw the hiring ad and I was like, what is this? It just sounds really intriguing. It said fuel injection. And I was like, well, I kind of understand fuel injection. Started checking the boxing, and it was manufacturing side of it. So it wasn't working in a shop anymore. And I was like, let me take a stab at this. And actually got hired in as a tech. And from the tech position, I was always a strong believer. You learn the product that you're working on, right? So
Most definitely.
Yeah,
Most definitely.
I did my homework. I went through everything. I understood everything. I did the tech side of it. I helped the tech department for as long as I possibly could there. And then the sales position opened up, and I was like, well, I know all your product. I'll start selling the product. So sales position, I started running all the sales department there, and they kept hiring in bosses over me. Well, I kept doing the boss's job. So they were finally said, hey, you know what, you're gonna take this position. So I became a sales manager, and then from the sales manager, it led to the VP of sales and marketing, which is a promotion of last year. But I've been running the Phytech side of business for probably 3 years.
Okay.
And I just finally got the recognition with the title, which was just another reason to bump me up. So I came with the BB title. I got to pick it.
Oh, you know what? Whenever you can get good pats on the back, that's what it's really about. And
Yeah.
the fact that you've grown up in the car stuff. I did for a while, but then as life, you get pulled in different directions.
Yep.
And now, of course, I've got some of that passion back. So when you kind of find a home at Phytech, like everything, I'm always sporting my brand. Whether it's even my regular personal business, I always have stuff on. You find that through the years now that, does it feel good to be part of something that's good? And then it's innovative.
It becomes part of you. If you look at my handles on social media, it's Phytech Mike. And the whole part of that started actually from the tech line, because I used to answer the phone going, Phytech, Mike speaking, how can I help you? And then it just became, let me talk to Phytech Mike. Want to talk to, and it just stuck. And so I just changed it because I was getting messages from people and throughout the industry, oh, it's Phytech Mike. It's just part of me now. And I'm very proudful of what I do for a living. I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I try to make sure I'm doing the best job I can do every day. And I think that spreads to the people that actually know me in the industry. And I believe it becomes contagious for my employees. I'm huge on the customer service side. I'm huge on the quality side. So I'm exhausted every day when I come home, but it's a good exhaustion because I know that the efforts I put in at work today are making my product that much better and selling that much more.
Okay. Now, obviously, like any company, there's growing pains, hurdles to go over. As you guys started the company and got it growing, what do you think has been probably the biggest hurdle to keep moving forward positive?
Well, one was Phytech grew so fast that there wasn't a foundation put in, right? Phytech just blew up. It came on the scenes out of nowhere, and we went from 50 units a week to needing to produce thousands upon thousands of parts out the door. When you grow that fast, you don't have the corporate side of business under you very well. So, HR, what's HR,
Right.
Go do your effing job, So no,
Right.
You start hiring people, you got to have HR. You got to have policies. You got to have time clock management. There's so much healthcare, dental, all these things that the foundation side of things weren't there. So it was very unstable. When you don't have those foundations, then it's kind of like the wild, wild west every day. You come in and your people aren't quite sure what to do. They like, what's my job duties today? Who am I today? So that's part of what I'm there for. Put structure back into the place and correct a lot of wrongs that were just skipped over at the beginning. I would probably say, just because it was more about getting product out on the street versus the backup plan, having tech support, because we grew
Right.
so fast. We didn't have techs. You had, two very, very smart guys that started off down there. Cody's no longer with us, but Cody was a great tech when he was there. And Bryce is actually still there. He was a day one employee. He's still there. Very knowledgeable guys, but there's no way they can handle the volume of calls
Right.
coming in on a product, mostly when you're teaching the world fuel injection, right? Because we made a product so affordable that it can get in the hands of anybody, but not everybody understands fuel injection.
Right.
I still get, it's still called a carb every day. Everybody calls, no, I want to buy one of your carbs. I'm like, oh, what would...
Yeah, we don't sell carburetors. We sell fuel injection units.
Yeah. I mean, but if you want to, if you're paying me money, you can call it whatever you want, but we're gonna help you out. Just
Right.
the same.
Well, and you find now, because I've had my Phytech since, well, it's been running since 2018, but obviously they've been around longer than that. But I didn't, I called in the tech line and got help, and I understood that, first of all, it wasn't them trying to figure out my problem. It was also teaching me the language that I didn't know that they needed me to know, because I had to learn IAC, ACC, all of these abbreviations. I use Google because I go, what is this they're talking about, right? And I could tell you that there isn't one product I bought for the car that had the best instructions, because it's all not different knowledge, and I have to learn it. So when I would call, and what can you do a data log? Yes. How should I do that? And I would do that, but that was the biggest thing that I always heard when I was getting into Phytech. When I wanted to buy Phytech, I'm looking online, getting things, and it was customer service this, customer service that, and it wasn't great, right? And I go, so as you've worked on that hurdle, and I know, just because I called last fall and I had your tech Fred on, and I had a 3-minute wait. Don't care. It's 3 minutes, right? That it is what it is. And it was a positive experience. Do you find out that people that maybe shut the door on that 3, 4, 5 years ago because they heard these things, that they're starting to come back around now a little bit to look at it?
Yeah, we're getting that. And we did a big push on our tech site. I mean, we're doing 52 videos a year. That's one video a week on tech. I mean, that's insane for a small company to have to crank out,
So now, curiosity here, on the tech side and everything, the guy that has a, 454, it's built up some, and he hasn't had a whole lot of drive time on it, is he gonna, until he has a drive time and all the more, cold start and everything, multiple times, is that thing gonna really be able to dial in without having a whole bunch of drive time in it, and redo it, for it to learn the cold start and all that?
In anybody's EFI system, including ours, it learns what you put into it.
Okay.
So if you started it twice, it learned those two things. It learned 2 times, and that's what the base is off of, right? So yes, if you drive it more, the smarter it gets.
Okay. The more you drive it, the better it's going to
it is. Yeah, exactly. Now you can get in our system and change those things. So if you get in and you're cranking and you notice the AFR is super high during cranking or something, you can adjust that right there on the fly. Or say you're stomping on the gas pedal and you feel like it's not accelerating like it should, you can go in there and change the fast accel or just accel pumps, whatever you want to get in there and change. It's accessible. And we're teaching those things.
When we talk to people, and I of course, because I was so new, I didn't know these questions and answers, but now when people ask me, well, is it really self-learning? You just bolt it on and go? I say, no. I said, you still have to have your base parameters set. I said, but what it does, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, this is how I try to tell people. I said, you still have to set your base parameters on how it's going to learn, because it's going to self-correct to the, the temperature, the humidity, all the stuff that it's doing like it should. I said, but you still have to set some of the base parameters, for what motor you've got. I think cubic inches, everything.
There's a misunderstanding what self-learning means. People think that you bolt it on and it learns what your motor is. It doesn't.
Well, you still got to give it some input.
You got to give it some data, right? Like cubic inches,
so,
give it a cam selection and go from there.
So then out of curiosity, okay, the race car guy, which, he's not going to, start it up, they've got big 700 lift cam. They've got, that's going to be one where he's probably going to have to do a lot of the tuning.
You're
himself
going to
on.
be more involved. So the more
Okay.
radical the motor, the more input you're going to have to put into it, and the more adjusting you're probably going to have to do.
Okay.
If you grab just say Crate 350, that's our wheelhouse where we started at. The base tune that's in the system, probably guarantee it's going to fire right up.
Okay.
Now there is one manual adjustment, which is setting the IAC steps, which is Greg, the lingo you had to learn in Google. And once you do that manual adjustment, everything else is done through the handheld controller of the PhyTech.
Okay.
Once you get those basic things down, and your install, if you follow the instructions and actually corrected any other engine issues that are there, vacuum leaks, exhaust leaks, fuel pressure issues, you're going to have probably pretty awesome experience. Now, if you have one of those other issues, vacuum leaks, fuel pressure issues, you're probably going to be like F and PhyTech until we figure out those problems.
Well, and from reading the forums, and I've been on the forums for 3-4 years, and I used to participate a lot. Now that mine's up and running, I don't participate as much because I don't have questions, but I'm always watching. And when a question comes up, we all do the same thing. You might make a one-word comment so you can follow the thread as it goes. But to me, what it seems like a lot is when people ask me, hey, I'm thinking about putting this on. Oh, well, you've got original 65 wiring in your car. You should probably rewire your car, because the wiring issue that I've seen on the forums and with myself is you better have that good 12-volt system going through the PhyTech, and make sure everything's correct that way. Because and correct me, like I said, Mike, if I'm wrong, if I don't know the verbiage as well, but PhyTech is going to amplify any problems that your car already has. Because like you kind of said, if it's got a vacuum leak, it's going to know it. It's problems.
That's a good statement that you said there. The way I say it is, fuel injection is going to expose any issues you have with your motor. That's the way I explain it to people. And they ask why. I said, well, a carburetor doesn't know the difference. It's not looking for that technology. It's just opening and dumping fuel in.
Right.
And that's all the carburetor's doing. Us, we're trying to maximize your experience. We're trying to make your engine perform as beautiful as it can. But if it has a vacuum leak, it's getting false signals. If it has an exhaust leak, it's not getting right data back to it. So it's trying to make an adjustment for something that necessarily doesn't need an adjustment. So then it will run poorly. But I mean, I'm telling you, once you fix those common small issues, the experience is phenomenal.
When people ask you the benefits from going from carburetor to fuel injection, what's your top 2 things that you tell them? Top 2 or 3?
My absolute favorite is throttle response and cold starts. That would be my 2 absolute favorite things about the PhyTech.
Okay. How cold is a California cold start compared to mine in Minnesota?
Well, I mean, we wake up at perfect temperature every day, so I just
right.
No, I've been up in the mountains and down. Big Bear, we have Big Bear up here. I've been up there with the hot rods, and there's snow on the ground up there, so cold starts and elevation, and it fires right up. I don't have a problem.
Mine starts I will say, I'll tell you, my first startup, Dan, is we get my car. Now, keep in mind, I had a good friend of mine, Jim, who was helping me build the car. I've never built the car. We put in a quick wire wiring harness, and so we're going through everything. We've got it all tucked up. Today is the day to fire the motor, right? And the only time I heard my motor run was on the dyno stand, and the guy who dynoed it with a carburetor. So, and I had even talked to that Wheeler Engines. It's a good, reputable shop. I said, hey, I'm going fuel injection. I go, is it okay? Because I hear that you should never break in on fuel injection. You should always break in on carb. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard back then. So I called him and said, he goes, no, you're fine. Put it on, follow the directions. Okay. So we go to do it, and we turn the key, and nothing. And I'm like, check the battery. We check everything, nothing. So Jim is about ready. He had no hair, and he already wanted to pull more out. I'm about ready. I'm going gray by the day. We spend about 2 hours. We're just about ready to take the PhyTech off and unplug every single thing on it. We go through the coil. Built-in kill switch that's on top of the quick wire wiring kit was in the wrong position. So we spent 2 hours rewiring, and as soon as we flipped that switch, the PhyTech within 8 seconds fired off cold, and the motor had sat for 2 years. And so it fired, it ran, we got it up to temperature. The only thing I had problems with, and I know we shouldn't talk problems, but they happen, was the temperature sender didn't work. So as my temperature was going up, I started hitting about 215 and we shut it down. And basically I ran to O'Reilly's, picked up a temperature sender, put in, it worked fine ever since. That was just one of the odd flukes for whatever it was. But I was always impressed from that day. I'm like, it started right now. No pumping of the gas, no doing nothing. And so I was kind of hooked at that point. You did mention throttle response. That is one thing that I do like about mine. And even last summer we were playing a little, jockeying around on the road, a little cruising. And Chad Buzz was a guy in our group, and he was beside me. And when crack it, he says, "Man," he says, "that thing is just instant," and it is. That's one thing that's like, there is no lag there. There's no bogging down. It's just get up and go. I do like that aspect. As far as the cold start, the only time I have problems, which you guys don't, is like in November, it'll be 35, 40 degrees, no snow on the road. Hey, let's go for a cruise. I can't fine tune that enough because you get one start a day, maybe two, and I don't have the time. And so she will lurch a little bit up until it hits about 100 degrees, and then it calms right down, but I tell myself I could work with that. And I know if I really cared, because I was going to drive at 30 degrees all the time, I'd work it out. But that's twice a year, and that's the only time I care. So I really don't care. But the restarts and everything else is absolutely beautiful with that aspect of it. Have you found now, because you guys have done a lot more dyno, and I've paid attention to a lot of videos, when you guys, and Dan knows this too, but I get really mad at watching all of these guys that live in California be able to come to your shop and dyno and do all this cool stuff. Now, have you ever had the chance yourself as a crew where you have, that's any motor you want, you throw it on the dyno with a carburetor, and it's, let's just say 500 horse. Do you achieve that same 500 horse with the fuel injection as you do the carburetor?
I can usually achieve the same horsepower. Now, like 500 is easy to obtain and get. The radical motors, you'll probably expose more horsepower with the carburetor. That's still to this day because you tune for that one spot of horsepower.
Well, so like the drag race guy, he's tuning, I've got a stick shift, so I'm tuning the most of the engine from 6,000 to 7,500. I mean, on the Phytech, can you do more? With fuel injection, can you do more to fine tune in that variable area?
We're getting better up there at that higher range. But here's the difference between me and a carb. I'm going to get you to that sweet spot faster.
Right.
So your throttle response and your acceleration and your torque is probably going to be better numbers with me.
Right.
Which when you're driving, I'm going to tell you, you're going to feel a lot faster with fuel injection. You're going to get up to that sweet spot a lot faster. Now, your top peak horsepower, I might not achieve the same goal, but I'll get you through that experience a lot faster.
Because it is so quick that causes people to miss third gear sometimes?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I was
a better shifter, Craig.
I was doing autocrossing all weekend this weekend. I was doing some R&D on a new product we have coming out, and so what I had on my truck, a small block Chevy, it's a Blueprint 400. It's 500 horsepower, 500 torque. It's right in the wheelhouse of what a lot of our customers have. So that's the motor I have in the truck right now. I had a dual quad on there, and I was doing R&D on that for the last probably 6 months just to improve it. Yank that off, and I have a new product on there. And the throttle response and the tune that we have coming out to the market on this new product is going to just shock everybody. I mean, this is a wheelhouse where you try five guys, because this setup is sweet.
That's cool.
Well, tease you guys on it, but I can tell you a little bit about it, but not too much.
That's cool. I'll tell you what, I could dial. This is my motor, obviously sitting right behind me. It's just a small block 350 with a Roots blower on it, and it's real mild build. I've got just about 5 1/4 horse is what it was dynoed at. Yeah. And I can't go anymore because I've got a cast crank, because I got the motor that came with a bunch of stuff. So the motor was basically free. Okay. And had trick flow heads. It was all done. It's a Summit crate motor. I'm like, in the engine shop, I said, "Hey, I want 500 horsepower." He says, "Let's throw a blower on it." So I said, "Oh, okay." Now I would love to dial it up. But I also don't want to grenade it, so I'm working on another block right now. But I've seen this on the forum, and I want to ask questions because I want to know how versatile the Phytech is. if I dial this thing up, let's say I take this thing off and I put on another 355 that's fully forged, and I'm going to get 600 to 640 horsepower out of something like that with this blower on it. Will that, my power adder 600, which I have, will that handle it, or am I really pushing the limits and should get up to the 1200 power adder?
Well, there's that system that you have, the 600, actually do about 6.25, 650 horsepower. So we underrate them a little bit just for the
Sure.
guys that are going over that peak threshold. So yeah, if you're staying under that 600 mark, then you're fine. If you're right at that 600 mark, I rather have more injector than not enough. That's, high horsepower going lean is not good for a motor.
Nope.
So I would personally go up to
No,
the next
definitely
level.
not.
Yeah. So I would go to the next level.
What do you see? And I know this is anti-hot rod when I say this, but I love mine for this reason. Do you have guys that talk to you about mileage change, how much better things are for them?
I do. Not on the crazy radical builds like what you got going on, because obviously you want burnt rubber and
I love my
go-
20 miles a
go
gallon.
fast. Which is great, right? You're doing a
Right.
phenomenal job. But I do get guys that go, hey, will this clean it up? Well, yeah, 99% of the time it will, because how well tuned is your carburetor? I mean, it just goes back to, we're tuning all the way through. How well is your carburetor acting right now?
Right.
And a lot of times I get the guys that will come back and say, man, my gas mileage and that fuel smell's gone. That fuel smell and exhaust is gone. My wife's happy again. She wants to get back in a hot rod and go cruise again.
Right. No, I some of the care, I will say this, what I love about the FiTech and the forum pages, there's a few guys that get on the forum pages that really help. And they're not FiTech guys, they're not paid by you, but they're knowledgeable. They've been doing this, they're either mechanics somewhere or they've got a passion for it. And when I built mine, that was the first thing I started reading forums. And I think I either asked advice or I read it. And they said, well, you don't want interference from your coil wire. Okay. And so before I even fired it, I put my coil wire in a rubber tube and wrapped it with the foil aluminum tape. Never had a problem, right? I didn't get that fall coil. You see a lot of guys when they call in that they just haven't taken the little steps that they could have read about or should have known about, in detecting some of these problems.
I get a lot of guys that will fully hide a harness, put all the wires together and hide a harness in a build, but not run the vehicle. So they do the whole wiring side of it, but never tested the product on the motor. And then they're like, where's my problem at? Well, we kind of got to spread things out and see if it's picking up interference, if we have one of those codes or something like that.
Okay.
So real quick on our live here on the YouTube channel, we got one guy. He was, and I don't know if he's questioning or whatnot. He said, I think he's questioning. He says, is FiTech similar to Holley Terminator, but for older engines?
That I don't. Question's not really too clear. I think what he's getting at is
If it's similar to the Terminator.
yeah, we're similar. It depends on what Terminator you're talking about, because there's different levels of the Holley
Right.
products. We can go on pretty much any motor. If you can supply me a 12-volt ignition signal and tack signal, we can work on your engine.
Okay.
As far as software goes, depending on how deep tuning you want to go, if you want our laptop software, you're going to want to buy a power adder. Power adders are going to come with the laptop form of tuning, where you can get in there and see some fueling tables.
Okay.
We don't go as deep into the tuning, because a lot of ours are on the backside that you don't see that the system's already doing for you.
Okay.
So we try to limit the abilities of people manipulating and changing things so it doesn't hurt them. So
Okay.
but then
So
we give the
the-
ability to the guys that know what they're doing.
Okay. I think that kind of explains what his question was. Like I says, he was just asking if it's similar to Holley Terminator.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say my sales pitch is it's apples to apples. If you want red apples or green apples is what it comes down to. I don't bash Holley's product. I think they make great products.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think each
Well,
and every one has a good.
to be
Each and
honest,
everyone has a good point on it.
to be honest, when I was building mine, I didn't have the FiTech bot motor sitting in the car, and I called Holley, and they didn't have a blow through application or a power adder. I said, all right, going because I thought, if you're buying a Wyand, which is a Holley product,
Yeah.
stick with one. But at that game, nope, they've got the one with the blower adder. And I did remember to put that little screw or take that little screw out underneath for the power adder part of it, and I didn't drop it in the blower. So I was happy with that because I remember I was just about ready to there's a tiny screw underneath the throttle body that you've got to take out. Am I right with that?
Yeah.
And it's for the blow through application or for a power adder. And I was taking it out with a tiny screwdriver over the blower. And Jim, who was helping me, quick throws a towel over the top of the intake. He goes,
Stop.
Craig, he goes, don't do stupid things. He says, take it out of here. I said, all right, I'll do that.
It's a boost reference port. It's a
Yep.
port so we can see the boost that the engine's making so we can tune for it.
Now, I think I mentioned to you on the phone, whenever I make changes to my handheld device, I always take a picture with my phone. That way I can remember what setting I had it on before, if it ran better or worse.
Mhm.
Do you find, is there better ways guys do that, or is that just kind of being neurotic?
Yeah, you can actually, there's 4 backups that are in the handheld. So you could just save to one of the backups.
Okay.
And then just remember I saved my last tune to the backup number 4. Now let me go make tune and drive it around.
Sure.
And then
I'll
if
see
you have,
I've never ventured into the bigger part of the software. I think I know. There's the regular tune. Then there's not the ProCal. I'm saying that wrong. There's a certain window in there or a choice I go to for different fuels.
well, you can go to the fuel cut controls or the fuel. Yeah, there's several different lines you can go in and get in on the handheld. You can do almost 99% of tuning through the handheld. I mean, if you're really trying to get into it. But yeah, the fueling tables, you can get in there and play on the handheld and do your Excel pumps, your cold starts, and your after starts and all things like that with the fueling table.
I was lucky enough, we got it running just good enough to go around the block and do some stuff. And there's a shop up here, and I always give them a shout out, Advanced Automotive Care. They're in St. Francis, Minnesota. Guy's name is Terry, super nice guy. So I bring my car there, and I said, I just need a tune, need a drivable. He says, no problem. 2 days later, they call me, hey, come get the car. He says, but when I came and got the car, I said, we want you to drive it now. So Terry sat in the seat next to me, and I pull out onto the road, and I let her fly. And it falls on its face, and he looked at me, he goes, oh, you're one of those guys. So he dialed up the acceleration pump for me, right? And then it took right off. And best $150 a guy ever spent. I couldn't believe it was that cheap to do the full set. And of course I did we installed it, but
Yeah.
they did all that stuff. And then I did have to bring it back one time on a start issue. But it was a simple little deal that they had done wrong. And they said, I just drive it up and not a big deal, but such a great shop. But as I tell a lot of people, in fact, even today, I was trying to talk to dyno shops that are local in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And none of them work with the Sniper or the Phytech type systems.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so mad when every time I see the guys out in California at the Phytech days and doing the burnouts and drags. That is, I know, am I being foolish? And Dan, I've had this question with Dan, but many times, am I being foolish? Because I always think, hey, if there's that extra 10 or 20 horsepower there, let's get it out of it.
You're not, rolling chassis dyno is always like the perfect place for like us to tune one, right? Because we don't have to pay attention to the road. We're on a dyno. We can look down at our laptops and geek out and give you the best tune possible for what we want to tune for.
Yep.
But with that being said, if you ever need a tune or anything, we're across the globe pretty much all year long. And if Phytech and the actual Phytech guy is actually at a show, they'll go out and tune your car for you. We'll go out there and tweak some things for you and try to fix that up for you. For instance, like Hot August Nights is coming up. That's going to be in Reno, right? In August. We'll be there for 7 days. I have a 20 by 40 booth. No, actually, I got a 40 by 40 this year. And that booth, all it does is tunes for free. We do it for free for our customer base.
So then speaking on the tuning aspect and whatnot, and this is probably a can of worms that you're probably not ready for. But what if there's a guy that's out there running a dual 4 tunnel ram or a cross ram or whatnot? I mean, is that something you guys have kind of explored a little bit with, or?
Yeah.
I mean, do you kind of set it up as though we're going on a single 4-cylinder and, with each?
No. It depends how you have. If you have a dual 2x4 setup, we would set it up just like a regular. The 2x4 setup works as a primary and a secondary unit. So
Okay.
the secondary unit's mimicking the primary unit. So we're still
Okay.
tuning like it's one whole unit. So
Okay.
the readings don't change for us.
Okay.
So the basic theory of our tune is still the same.
Okay.
I don't know. That's probably the best way I could explain
Yep.
it. So
So
I'm
it's-
still
you
hitting
still-
AFR targets.
you have stuff that'll work, for the guys that have like a cross ram or a
Yep.
2.4 tunnel ram or whatnot.
Yeah, the only difference on those, on the guys with like the cross rams and stuff, they have to buy a little sub harness because it needs to extend a little bit farther as far as what the hearts comes in the kit.
Right. Okay.
But we have experience and been very successful with it.
Okay. So that's doable then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I see a lot more. I mean, as we do this, and you've probably seen, because I saw the follow on Instagram. Thank you, by the way. And I always tag Phytech whenever there's something. I always tag Phytech because I try to do that. And be honest, when a company that you've used likes a post, it's something so stupid as an old guy to go, oh, a little bit of slap on the back. That's great. Somebody looked at it. But when I call Phytech, and I've called probably a dozen times over 4 years for stupid questions, and someone like Bryce or yourself answer phone and, hey, this is Craig Tri-5 Mob on Instagram. People actually recognize that because they've already followed it or they've seen the tags. And I find that a lot of fun with social media. And so that's like, even when you guys come to shows, and we're going to talk about how do I get, to more shows like Back to the 50s, Good Guys Up by Me, so we can do this tuning.
Yeah. So, where's home plate base for you again, Greg?
Minneapolis.
So where will I be up there? I have, let's see here. I think it's Toys for Trucks puts a show on up there, and we'll be up where's that? I'll be in Ohio, and then we'll be in Iowa. That's pretty far up there. We're getting closer.
It's getting there. You're getting closer.
And then Back to the 50s, we actually have a rep team that will be there. And I'll actually have a couple reps there that are pretty good with the Phytech themselves because they've been around with us since day one.
So if we do a couple of polls, I take them out for runs, and I take them out for barbecue. I get some tune.
I can guarantee you, I probably get one of them to do it.
Big barbecue guy.
Yeah, my goal is to try to get back to the 50s myself. It's a show I've always wanted to do. It just lines up at the wrong time for us.
Yep.
So with one of the deals on the marketing and the sales side is if I can sign a contract that's longer, you usually get it cheaper, right? So like with the Good Guys, we're huge supporters of Good Guys Car Show. I signed some long contracts with them, and I do some heavy advertising with them because that's, again, I told you the face-to-face side of advertising, and they put on a good show. Plus we like autocross and racing cars, so we sponsor that as well with them.
Well, the fuel injection throttle response has just got to be a big deal with the autocross.
Yeah, we're seeing our market grow in that field, and I think we're seeing it grow too. Is that we're active.
Yep.
I think that sets us aside than any other fuel company out there. I mean, I know Holly has a couple big headliner shows that they do themselves, but you can very approachable. You can just walk up and talk to us, and we'll walk right over your car and hang out with you and figure out what we can do for you.
You talked about being approachable like that. I find that common at so many things as I've gone to a lot of car shows, but I go to a lot of builder shows for my construction stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people you walk up to, and I can tell you, even at the Tri-5 Nationals last time, a couple years ago when I was there, they've got their vendors. And there's a couple vendors I needed to talk to because I had some suspension questions.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get anybody to look at me because I didn't have a checkbook sitting in my hand. I wasn't writing the check. I needed some answers about their products before you move forward. And the approachability to people like yourself, just when a guy walks up, says, hey, this is what I got. This is what I'm looking for. How can you help me? For a guy that takes that extra 10 minutes or 5 minutes out of the day, you might not have sold something that day, but you figure that guy's coming back later, or at least he's telling two of his friends, hey,
you know about it, and that's my job, is to let you know what we have to offer. And if my guys that you meet at shows don't do that, then they don't need to work for us. They got to be approachable. They got to be friendly. They got to be willing to find you the answer that you're looking for. Even if they don't know it, they got to be willing to go find it.
The only complaint I ever have is on myself when I've called customer support. the first time I actually did data logs to see where I was at, and I don't even think it was because I had issues. I just want to see how to do things. Is the fact that I get somebody on the phone. By the time I get out of work to get in my car, do a couple runs, it's been 2 or 3 days, and then I got to send it back. It's 2-day response, and I can't even remember what my questions were. So I keep tablets all over my office because I've got to keep track of my notes and stuff. And that's the only drawback to not having a shop that's close by to say, oh, here's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to have somebody sit in the car with the laptop while you run through it, because they can watch how everything's. I don't care what my horsepower is. I know what it was dynoed at. I don't care what I am at the rear tires. I just want to make sure it's the best that my car can do. And like I said, that's the biggest thing. And when I switched over, in my mind to go with fuel injection, and I see these other people going with carbs, get in their car and they got to pump it 6 times, and they're getting their 12 miles to the gallon. And I'm like, dude, if well, you guys are more than we are, but $4 or $4.50 a gallon for premium here, it's like, I want to do the best I can, and I want to run it, and I want it to run clean. I don't want to overheat or, anything like that. And so I like being able to dial it. And I know last fall when I called to talk to Fred, it's because for a couple of years, the only time I'd smell gas is when I really stomped it hard to getting on the interstate.
Mhm.
And I got a scent of gas, and I talked to him. He says, he goes, your accelerator pump's way too high. Bring this down. And then there was another setting. And says, bring this one up, bring this one down, tell me how it is. And honestly, it worked. I can't remember what I did. I wrote it down. It's in the garage, but it's like, that's the little stuff, because I don't know all the abbreviations, know. But what, as far as the future going, I know I'll probably be all over the place with this question, but we know the EPA cracks down on a lot of aftermarket stuff.
Mhm.
And we've been fighting. Dan and I have talked to, is it Dr. Jamie Myers, isn't his name?
Jamie Meyer with PRI.
Yeah, with PRI. Do you guys ever get blowback or concerns coming at you as far as, what the EPA is going to try to do without modifying motors and stuff like that?
Well, see, that's why we're in the hot rod industry. We try to stay within that spectrum of rules that they have for us. We try to sell for the year ranges of vehicles that we're allowed to sell for. We try to obey by the rules that are presented to us. That's a day-to-day battle because it changes day to day.
So then with that kind of being said,
Oh, you froze.
right now I've got and everything that comes in that, kind of touch on, all of the stuff that comes in that 55 kit. I mean, I see the unit, I see, your O2 sensor, wiring harness, gas tank.
So you kind of cut out a little bit. I believe you asked, is it the total package you're talking about?
Yeah, well, how does that whole package there, how does that help keep you in the,
Well, one is you didn't have any emission regulations on that 1955 vehicle.
Okay.
That's pretty much the law on that one.
Okay.
The vehicles you got to be careful with that came with factory, like charcoal canisters, to evap systems, to EGRs, to air smog pumps. That generation of vehicle and stuff is the ones that the CARB is going after industry people for manipulating, right? Now they're not going to go away. Okay, California is a trendsetter on enforcing emission laws. We do it, then we got 13 states right behind that follow it.
Minnesota loves with California.
Whatever
laws
California
right now.
does, right? And so with that being said, it's either you follow rules or you get fined if you don't, and it's not cheap. And then, or you also adapt and you start making CARB legal product, right? So right now, Phytech is working with SEMA and a couple other outside entities to make CARB certified products. That means that we can start changing those 1980, those late blooming carbs and those motors, the TPI motors and stuff like that had all these carb parts on there. We're all these emission related parts on there. We're gonna try to make systems that can work with those.
So your LS kit, you had sent me an image for the LS kit.
Yeah.
Does that got all of the,
Nope.
legal stuff?
That the LS kit is designed for pre-smog vehicles.
Okay.
So it's not a current LS modification. It's designed to go in your classic vehicle.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's interesting because the biggest thing that bothers me in all of this is I've waited, my whole life to get back into cars. This car was my dad's car. That's what he hot rodded in. I got it and got to finally do it. And now we watch gas prices go up and we watch this electric car push. What are guys in your industry talking? Because where we're at in Minnesota, they're trying to pass a law right now that says you can't have a piece of lawn equipment that's gas powered after 2025. Okay. And so there's a big push out there. Catalytic converters into vintage cars. This is one of the things on the ticket right now in Minnesota that nobody's talking about, which I find absolutely kind of ridiculous because I guarantee with the FiTech and my Tremec, I'm doing better than a lot of cars on the road today that are a lot newer,
Yeah.
So what's the word where you guys are at? Are you guys worried at all that this is just going to get shut down on us in the future? Or do you think it's going to get long drawn out?
Um, we're in for the long run. There's going to be things that we're going to have to change to, and we're going to throw bait to. It's just the way the world's catering to right now. There's going to be states that are going to rebel and fight against it, and there's going to be states that are say, "Hey, you got to follow these rules." And I think that's part of the hot rodding bloodline that we have, that we figure out how to overcome and adapt to it. So if they say we need cats, then we're going to have some badass cats going in these cars.
Right.
I mean, there's this. We're going to figure out how to make it work and make it follow the rules enough.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's just part of the reality of where we're headed. I could just tell you on the FiTech front, we're going toe to toe. We're going to go and we're going to get these CARB-EOs. We're going to try to come out with these compliant parts to keep the hot rod industry alive. I mean, and that's just what we have to do.
That's awesome. I'm always told this. I try to be optimistic, but I'm such a pessimist when I see this stuff getting pushed, and it feels like it's just getting. After my years of waiting, all of a sudden, just overnight in the last 2 years, things are switching. Like, oh my God, it's going to go that direction. So it's glad to hear that you guys, let's just keep pushing forward, and obviously things have to change. But now on a happy note, best car celebrity in general that FiTech has worked with, or somebody you've met at a car show that just blew your mind as being the best?
Well, I'm a UFC fan. I've been a UFC fan since it was illegal to own one of their black tapes that I used to get my hands on as a kid. So
I watched UFC 1 on VHS.
That's how I got it. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I used to get. I used to have to go to, I can't tell you the location, but I used to go pick up a black tape from a guy and go sneak up in my room and watch it, So with that being said, I have a really good friend that I've developed through this industry, which is Josh Barnett.
Okay.
Which was a heavyweight UFC fighter.
Yep.
Still active today. He does a lot of bare knuckle fighting and stuff like that. But he's a hot rod lover, and he actually pursued a FiTech, and then me and him became buddies through the FiTech industry, and we talk crap to each other all the time.
That's perfect.
He's a big dude.
I think the biggest thing is, and I hope it never goes away, is people are connected through cars, whether it's my dad's car or somebody's grandpa's car, or they knew a guy in high school that had one of those cars. And like I said, when you get in these celebrities, everybody from Jay Leno to Joe Rogan to Kevin Hart, they're muscle heads deep down, and they like this stuff. And so, getting to, meet people through all this. And we've had quite a few racers on the show. It's pretty cool to meet. And, just even, it's small people. I'm not saying Michael Wall's not a celebrity here, but neither, but it's to be able to meet and talk to people about the products. And that's something I want to get more into. And we have a guy who's in our group on Facebook, and within our first year, I mean, he knows Jay Leno. So he got to hold a Tri-5 mob sticker in his mouth, because we had a sticker competition. Where could you put a sticker and get away with it? Right.
Well played.
And so all of a sudden, we have a couple guys coming back with some really risque photos, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let's go. And all of a sudden, I get a photo emailed to me with Jay Leno with a mob sticker in his face, and then later that same year, his name is Mike, got to do, he did a Facebook Live from Jay's Christmas dinner.
Oh,
and
nice.
Jay's driving a scooter around the inside of his house, right?
Yeah.
So, but like I said, that's cool. I always have to ask that questions, because some people, have met Jesse James, or they've met Richard Rawlings.
We get all those guys. We get all the car builders. We're in California, so we see them all at the shows. The Chip Fooses, we get those big time builders. But
he's a nice guy, Chip Foose.
He is probably the nicest guy I ever met in my life. I mean,
Yep.
I was a fan of his when I was a kid, and to be able to be in the same kind of industry he's in, and he comes up to you and he talks to you like you're just another average Joe, and you have a good conversation. He's an awesome
Yep.
dude. And will give you the knowledge he has, which is
I met
the
Chip
awesome thing.
Foose at Back to the 50s in about 2005 or 6. And that was right when overhauling was at its peak.
Peak.
And I walked around and he's there doing autograph signing and everything. And I'm not the type of guy that needs autographs or stand in line for it. But my daughter was a cute little blonde girl, 3-4 years old with pigtails. And she goes, Daddy, he's on TV. And I look, I'm like, yeah, it's Chip Foose. And then he saw her and he's like, hey, come here. So there's 200 people in line and we got to walk up. And, you
Yeah.
know, it's like that, when you see somebody
Speaks
like that,
volumes.
it speaks absolute volumes. And we have the 3M company is, 5 miles from my house.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been here for a couple local little car shows, and because obviously 3M is huge in the automotive industry. And so, he's been at a couple things, and that's everybody always has to say, you don't find much nicer guy than that. Even Sherry Lynn Westridge said the same thing about him, just the nicest guy ever.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we see him. Kevin Hart was another one that we've recently been running into because he's been doing we have this thing called the quarantine cruise out here where
Yep.
it's like 2,000 cars cruising out PCH, which is phenomenal. Bitech sponsors that, by the way.
Yeah, you don't have to remind me as I sit here in 2 feet of snow and it's still 30 degrees.
They just had one last weekend too.
Yep.
But no, it's a good event, and you get the celebrities out there, and that one was a mind shocker when you see a multi-million-dollar build next to a $500 junkyard pool.
Yep.
And the two guys are conversating and having the best time in the world. That
Yep.
tells you our industry and our car culture is just phenomenal.
Absolutely. But Kevin Hart, he's what, 5'8", 5'10"?
3-4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a big dude. That's
So
all
we've
right.
kind of been on some of the fun subject and whatnot, but let's kind of touch on your products and what people can expect to get out of them. So again, I've got like the 55 kit that's pulled up, and what is people, because I see there's some fittings in it and I see there's some hose. I mean, is this pretty much like tank to injection unit? It's all in the kit.
I believe you're looking at a total package. If it's what Crystal sent over for you, it's
Yep.
called a total package. It's a new line that we're coming out with. We're targeting your specific vehicles. So there's
Okay.
like obviously we're gonna hit Tri-5, right? Because that's
Right.
You guys got a little cult following. So we're gonna have some kits for you guys, and this is gonna hit your gas tank, intake pump, sending unit, straps, stainless steel Breda line, filters, fittings, everything you need to get up to 600 horsepower on an EFI Gold Easy Street unit.
Okay.
And we're going to package that at a reasonable price where you can get bumper to bumper EFI for.
Okay.
I always notice these total packages come out after I'm done building something.
Yeah, well, you got something a little bit different. So
Right.
this is where you're up to 600 horsepower, naturally aspirated. You're not, based on the
No,
picture
but
behind you.
even I've got the CPP 25-gallon tank, but
Yeah.
I have the the frame rails where my fuel pump and everything is. Now they have that tank
Intake.
with an
Intake,
intake
yeah.
pump, which would have been
Yep.
so much nicer. But
Yeah, but that's what we're offering. We partnered with Tanks Inc. We sell their tanks. They make a great product, and there's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel on that one. So we use their tanks. We use our pump. That pump that's in there is a 340-liter power pump. It can support up to 800 horsepower. And then the nice thing about our pump housing on the top, if you have the image of it there, I don't know if you do.
Yep. Yep, I got it pulled up.
Okay, cool. I just have just your face right now. So
Yeah.
The two lines they go straight out. So if you look at anybody else's, most of them are like crow's feet, and it's just a
Right.
pain in the ass to run lines that way. So we made it 2 lines straight up, vent out the back, because you always want to vent towards the back of the vehicle anyway. So
Yep.
We think about those things because we install these things and we've been doing this for years, and it's like, man, why didn't they make it this way? Well, let's make it that way. So
Yep.
that's our
Right.
theory.
no,
Make it easier.
what is there? I don't want to say a secret, but what's the next big evolution? You got a new big product or anything coming out that maybe I don't know, but other people do already.
Oh, I got I'll tell you what's in the C10 that I just ran this weekend. That's fresh in my brain, and I'm all jazzed about it because it's Monday morning. I got to drive it all weekend long. We're doing it's called a 24X cam sync pickup. So pretty much what it's doing is you're going to replace your distributor with our cam sync pickup. It goes in the same spot where it's at. Now you got a 24 reluctor wheel in there, which is a LS platform sensor. Now we can run a LS ECU, LS wiring harness, LS coils on your small block Chevy or big block Chevy.
So you can get coil on plug and have individual cylinder tuning.
Yes, sir. So I ran that all. I ran that all weekend this weekend. It is pretty nasty. It's awesome.
Dude, that sounds. So then, would that be the guy with a Victor Junior single plane? They send it out to you. You weld in bungs to it, or you've got a sheet metal intake.
Now we're gonna have a complete port injection manifold package. We're gonna have it all for sale. So you can just do the coil on plug if you want, or you can buy our. It's gonna be sectioned off in a bunch of different packages.
Okay. What about like the guys that they're running 18 degree or 15 degree or whatnot? Are you gonna have an intake for that too, or is that gonna be?
We'll have a pretty solid all-around package set up for everybody. We're trying to cater to everybody on that aspect. I mean, we're successful in tuning down to 3 inches of vacuum now.
Okay.
Motor made vacuum. So you bring it, we got it. If you got anything under 3 inches vacuum, you do not need to be using my product. Yeah. I don't want you using it. I don't want that phone call because it's hard enough to tune down to 3 inches of vacuum.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to touch it.
You talk about like the vacuum, and of course, like I said, I was new to all of this terminology when I started working on the car. And when I first put in, because I have kind of a mild cam because it's a roots blower, not a real lumpy cam, I went on number 2. Yeah. And one guy who's a local guy, he does some tuning. He's looking at my all the learn percentages and stuff. He goes, man, that's still far off. He goes, I'd probably try cam 3. He goes, what's your vacuum? I said, I don't know. So we ran it. And he starts looking at it. He goes, oh, he says, go to 3. And my learn trim, or I never quote this stuff right, but the number was much smaller. He goes, it's going to learn faster now. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. And that's a good way of explaining it.
And it was just that little bit of his knowledge going, no, go to cam 3. I said, well, yeah, but it's not wild or mild, because I went by the definition. He goes, yeah, but he goes, you got to look at where your vacuum is on it too. And I still had enough vacuum, even with the blower on there to go up a little bit, or whatever it was. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Let's switch it out. Because if it didn't work, it just touch the button, go back to where you were.
Go back to where you're at. Yeah,
absolutely. I dig that part of it. Now, my only question is now, do people primarily leave their handheld plugged in all the time, or do they just hide it after a while?
It depends on who's doing it. So that's a common question that we get. Oh, my computer battery's running low. Anyhow, you're all right. I'll grab a plug right now. The guy that didn't set it up for himself and the guy that doesn't want to touch it is going to have it in his glove box. Now, the guy that went through the trouble of installing himself and setting it all up likes to stick that sucker on the windshield and watch that live data. I mean, that's as simple as
I've got it. So I go to the big, so it's just reading like my RPM and my temperature. I'm using it like that. And I've got it set, but I forget if I don't drive my car for 7 to 10 days, I lose battery charge.
You didn't.
There he is.
I muted myself. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no problem.
I was yelling at my wife to try to bring me a charger real quick.
That's okay because we're getting close to. We usually try and stick around an hour, an hour and 15. So
you can tell how much I'm on my computer for work. So
because I'm always on my handheld because I like watching the data probably more than I should, and I like watching. I check. I roll up to a stop sign. Now, if I'm sitting at the stoplight for 5 minutes, I always look down at my IAC. Oh, yeah, it's right where it should be. I'm kind of neurotic that way. But if I don't like unplugging my handheld because I have that first generation with the 2 little pins. So I'm like, I leave them put and it's perfectly mounted. But if I forget to go out, I usually lift my hood. I've got a little battery shut off, If I don't do that, if I don't drive my car for 7 to 10 days, it drains the battery pretty good. Is there any way to get around that besides unplugging the unit?
I would recommend unplugging it. There is an amp draw that's going to happen through there. And we're still working on trying to figure out the best way of doing that. The newer systems are a lot better than the older first gen systems, which you
Yep.
have. And it's just something, unfortunately, you have to deal with. I
Can
don't
they-
know
can they put
other
like
nicer way
a-
of saying it.
Can you put like a little lithium battery inside of the handheld to where it would?
The newer gens we're working on for the new stuff. One of the problems is when we first started this, we only had a 16 gigabyte chip in all our systems.
Right.
Now we're moving on to 32, which gives us a lot more room to grow our product line and
Right.
make it better. So we're working on those improvements. The newer handheld is a lot more forgiving and less drain. Myself, excuse me, I do a battery kill switch in all my vehicles because I travel so much and I don't get to drive them all the time. So what I do is I key off for 30 seconds and then once I see the data just veer off the handheld, I'll go kill the battery and I don't worry about nothing. Or I
Okay.
use a battery tenderizer myself.
Yep.
I plug it into the
Well,
wall
that's,
and walk
I've
away.
got I basically pop the hood and I just got that battery kill switch up under the hood
Yeah,
and
I
turn
do the
that
same
off.
thing.
And I've forgotten probably, at least twice a year for the last couple of years where I forget to, and it drains that Optima battery all the way down. It's a little trick getting it back because it's, 40 degrees in the garage. So I'm like, okay, I got to remember to do that. But obviously if I'm driving it once a week in the summer, it's not an issue. Pops right
So-
off.
I got a little tip for you. Look up C-Tech charging components.
Okay.
C-Tech battery tenderizers. They can recover those Optima batteries because sometimes those Optima batteries don't recover. Once you drain them down,
I have
there's a
charged to the
special-
regular. I have charged to the regular one and I had to push into the Optima to recover it. I
Yeah.
Googled that one time, but
Yep.
I mean, these are minor issues that I ask, but other people that are going to put on the FiTech, this is what gives, well, I think people themselves a bad name because they go on the forum and you'll see them start a thread and they'll be like, this is bad. Oh my God, this is horrible. And then when you start diagnosing the problems, it's everything that they had done wrong in the first place and didn't diagnose it. And
Yeah.
one of the things when I talked to you on the phone, and I just ordered them. I just ordered my 4 injectors. I ordered another oxygen sensor with that little seal that I don't know what you call it, that carbon seal or whatever for the on the pipe. Not it comes with the clamp system, everything.
The bunk kit.
Yeah, the bunk
Yeah, the
kit.
bunk.
Because I noticed the last time mine was getting a little brittle from on and off changing things. But I said, I'm putting this in my toolbox. I don't need them today. Everything works. Is this, and I know you kind of said this is an indication you don't want to tell people that things aren't going to last forever, but even my Silverado had an injector problem, right? I mean, everything's going to have a problem. Is this something you might recommend people might not need 4 injectors, but hey, get a couple injectors, put them in the toolbox?
We've had very good luck with our electronics and they've done pretty well, but there are also sensors in electronics. You're bound to lose something eventually someday. Just like in a carburetor, you're bound to have a needle
Right.
go bad or a float stick or something go bad, right? It's hot rodding.
It's just
Um,
simple nature, parts wear out or go bad or just,
Yep, your OEM vehicles to this day, you're going to have to go in and they're going to say you got an air temp sensor that's bad. You're going to have to change, or you need a coil or something's going to go on, right? I personally, I cruise around with the spare injector. Why? Because I'm smart enough to know, hey, if my car breaks down, I want to be able to go home. I don't want to be on the back of a wrecker. I can change in 2 seconds.
Yep.
So it's not a bad thing to have backup parts. I have backup fuel pumps. I have backup spark plugs. I have backup spark plug wires. I have an extra belt in the back of my truck. I have a jug of coolant and some power steering fluid and a quart of oil. I mean, I've been that way since I didn't do fuel injection, and I'm probably going to remain that way with fuel injection. And with adding on fuel injection, I'm going to have some spare parts.
yeah.
I've got every extra belt. I don't have extra plugs, but I've got every extra belt. I've got grease. I've got oil, everything in the toolkit. Cause I don't want to be the guy on the side of the road calling a wrecker. Cause that's even more embarrassing if I can help, if I limp at home. And I have limped home before on things, and it's what happens. But, as far as, I always also, one of the things I read about these guys that have overheating problems, and not necessarily the car's overheating, but they talk about they should get spacer blocks and underneath it, Now you can see what I'm running, and my car runs hot. If I'm getting on it in the summer, that blower under the hood with no cowl gets hot, and I've never had a problem with the FiTech at all. Is there something else these guys might be doing wrong where they've got to get spacers in there?
They might be leaned out a little bit too much. It really depends on what they're doing. I would have to see their setups. I don't run any phenolic spacers at all. I've never had a problem, and I beat the living crap out of my Phytex. I mean,
Yep.
if you want to see a guy that tries to break a product, it's me. That is 100% my goal every time I get in my hot rod is I'm supposed to break the Phytex. So I don't run one. I've never had an issue with that. So I would probably say it's tunable at that point. I think some guys use it as a shortcut to not have to tune.
Yep. And that's one of the things I've looked at because I do run warm, and it's just a simple airflow problem under these hoods, you know, with the blower and stuff. The only thing that I had to modify, see if I can get out of the way here. I can't even point to it on screen. At the top of the linkage for the throttle,
You grab
the-
tire.
you've got the one that's up top, that's the big round spot where you can hook into. Well, I couldn't do that. That's not where the Phytech guys or automotive hooked on. There's a space one down that they hooked on to work better because I've got a 3-inch drop base that's offset to work with because I have no hood clearance.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing about 100 miles an hour one night. It was awesome. I'm like, yeah, let's get her going first summer. I'm
So,
about 100,
yeah.
105 miles an hour. All of a sudden I let off the gas, but the gas didn't let off
No, scary.
because the air cleaner loosened up just enough where it turned just enough and it
And
locked
just
that
got
up.
it.
So I
Oh.
took the old grinder and cut that upper part of the
Yeah.
throttle off.
I would have done the same thing.
You know, but she responded greatly, but it wasn't coming down. So
yeah,
you know,
that gets
but
scary.
I've
Well,
had
hot rodding's all about making it work.
I've learned so much from meeting people like you, Mike, and Dan has helped me so much through the years, and I'm still on. And like I said, this summer, I'm hoping to get somebody with me that can watch my data because I still want to say, guys, there a dyno shop somewhere. How can I get this much better? And even if it takes me half a summer just sending logs out again, I'm going to do it because there's got to be something. And even like when I stomp on it, my boosted full AFR is supposed to be like 11.2, and mine always drops to 10.8. It doesn't matter, and then it comes back up.
But how fast? That's
What's
where
that?
it's at. It's how fast does it recover?
Oh, probably a second.
Yeah. So there's. I mean, we could probably tune it a little bit faster, but that's quick response and that's real time data. You got to remember that. That's
Yep.
real time data.
Yeah,
That's the sensor getting the fuel and then going back adjusting again.
exactly. So I mean, it goes right back to where it is, and like I said, it pulls hard. It's not, and I do play with it until it falls on its face. You know, get it. I just play with it a little bit, drive a couple miles, stomp on it, falls on face. Okay, I need more fuel. Add more fuel. You know, and so your guys have been really good telling me which way to go with things. You know,
That's good because that's hard for a tech to try to pick up where you left off because he's probably talked to 250 people in between your phone calls, you know?
And I told them, I think it was Austin once. I'm not sure which. I've probably talked to them all. They said the first time I did a dyno, or not a dyno poll, but a data log. He says he goes, he could see first, second, third. He goes, do me a favor. He says, get in second gear and log it down low and bring it all the way up one time. He says, I want to see how it corrects itself through it because obviously I was going, first gear wide open, second gear, good shifts. He goes, I want to see a full pull to see how it does through all the things. And there was a couple spots in there. I remember they cleaned up for me and it was just like, oh, he goes, here, gotta do this. All right, thank you. And it was, went out but it doesn't happen in the first mile. It takes, let me say 5 to 20 miles. And all of a sudden you notice everything's just running smoother. Did I say that right?
Yeah. I mean, you do have to,
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, well, we lost Dan. I think he
I'm
powered
here.
off.
No, I'm here. We
Not
lost
Dan,
Mike.
my last Mike. Yeah. So, well, that's okay. So the only thing I wanted to ask him, and I mean, we'll find out because I saw that Wendell had a question on the YouTube of where he was going to be in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll make sure we can figure that out. But either way, we'll touch base with Dan and say thanks for coming on. And we just went 9 minutes too long for his battery.
Yeah, evidently.
So
well, hey, I really enjoyed talking to him. I enjoyed seeing him, getting to know him.
Yep.
And it's good getting to meet more, product related people. So yeah,
I like the good conversation and products, and I think hopefully we can keep getting more people to come on and talk about products that can help us and explain stuff. And maybe next time Joey and Joe can show up and have some more good fuel injection questions. So, and or whatever we're talking about.
Yeah. And he just texted me his CPU died.
That's all right. So, but super nice guy. Glad to have him. And if anybody needs a Phytech, I mean, I know some people like them, some people don't. I've had nothing but good luck with mine. Knock on wood.
Yeah, most definitely. So, anyways, this week we've really enjoyed being here. We got to talk to Michael and enjoy his telling us about stuff. So, yeah, that was an enjoyable night. He says he had a blast, and thanks for having him on. So hopefully we can have him on again here in the future. And, do, like I said, have Joe and Joey on and have a little bit more product discussion.
Absolutely. So very good. Appreciate you being on tonight, Dan, and hopefully we can get this back on schedule and do some more of this and get me out of my winter depression up here.
Yeah, I think
Because there's somewhere in July I've got to be in Iowa for something. I just can't remember what that was going to be.
racing, right?
I'm hoping. Yeah, unfortunately, this my summer is going to be so fun with work, and my wife is now having shoulder surgery within the next couple weeks, and then a back surgery, so she's falling apart. But at least I'll be able to cruise in peace.
Yeah. Able to cruise in peace.
Yep. So very cool. I appreciate everybody watching. On the YouTube and on the mob, and freaking hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're signing off. Y'all have a good night. We're going to talk to you later.